Let me tell you a story. It takes place in beautiful Tasmania, an isolated island on the south of Australia where nature reigns sovereign over the land. This is the home of the Tasmanian pademelon, the Tasmanian devil, and the legendary white wallaby. It's the sort of place that will make you feel nostalgic for something you didn't know you were missing. The kind of place that will make you feel at home no matter where you're from. But this story is not about the land, or its beautiful lakes, or its snowy mountains, or its extensive wildlife. No, this story is about people. More specifically, a group of people who decided to come to this land to explore. A group of weirdos who don't fit anywhere in society but amongst their own. A group of people who don't seem to care for the same things that haunt the rest of us. In one word, hippies. This is a story of the cherry picker family. Now, even though many of my friends would consider me somewhat of a hippie, I can assure you that I'm far from it. There are many things that I like about the movement and many things that I incorporate into my own life. However, there are certain things that have always bothered me. In the case of our little tribe of travelers, for example, our campsite looked like a dump for most of the season, and it wasn't possible to be maintained clean for more than one full day without becoming a shithole again. On top of that, our stuff was constantly disappearing without a reason, which is really sad in a group of people where everyone is just as broke. Of course, this was the responsibility of a few and not of everyone, and I know this is not part of the hippie manifesto or however you want to call it, but unfortunately it does seem to be a pretty typical problem to encounter at places like this. The reason I share the negative sides first is because I want you to understand that not everything was perfect, and yet I had a great time. I've met people that I hope will be my friends for the rest of my life. People who don't care about the same type of stuff most people would care about. People that I was able to have much more deep relationships with, since the common dirt of modern life had not penetrated into theirs, which meant that their lens of life was somewhat clean. The reason I call it the cherry picker family is because we all lived together in the same campsite, one that was located in the middle of a cherry farm where we would go to pick about 5.5 days a week, when the season actually started, at 6:30 in the morning. We all stayed together and we all worked together, so we naturally became really close to one another. But what exactly was it that brought us so close? Saturday 24th, Christmas Eve. People have started cooking from the day before. Today there will be a feast. We lay our plates on a round table and some longer, cheap plastic tables that we have taken outside of our small metal shed. People from Israel, Spain, Chile, Argentina, France, England, Czech Republic, Belgium, Peru, Japan, Italy, Holland, Germany, America, Australia and Indonesia gather around to enjoy the international food. Everyone's outside, since there is no inside in this campsite. The closest thing are the 3 walls and roof on the shed. Close to it, someone has started a fire, and people have already gathered around to protect from the cold of the evening. Inside, people are playing chess, hugging for no apparent reason, and generally having fun. This is not the first time we've organized something like this. It was just a couple of days ago that Argentinians, Chileans and Italians had made lentil stew that fed over 20 people, and the parties in the future were only going to get crazier. (14th and 15th of January 2023. We decide to visit Bruny Island, a place just south of Tasmania where, besides a few houses, 2 restaurants and the roads that connect all, the land is untouched. Our group consists of 1 Korean girl, a bunch of French people, and me, the lone Argentinian. When one's traveling, especially with long-term traveling, one must constantly come to visit places like this to remember why we came to this country in the first place. I'd be lying if I said that the good pay and other factors weren't weighed in, but none of that means anything without this sunset, or this wallaby, or these people. Our most human side comes out at moments like this. I'd say we forget about our worries, but for me, I seem to find the solutions to my problems at times like this. I don't come up with them, the answers come to me. (23rd of January 2023, Mona Museum. If you ever find yourself in Hobart, you have to visit this place. Of course, unless you don't like off-sync singing or weird fat cars or plastered vaginas on the wall. Like most people, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of modern art, but I really did enjoy Mona. The emotions you go through in some of these places, the curiosity, the general and sometimes ew, kept us going for about 4 hours, and we probably would have stayed longer if we had arranged our arriving time better. It was like a maze, where you enter with your friends, get lost maybe for a couple of hours, only to find them again on a different floor at a completely different exposition than the one you had separated at. To be honest, I didn't understand most of the expositions, and I also didn't bother to download the app that would have explained them to me, but the ones where I did understand, I remember thinking, oh sh. Even when I didn't understand what was going on, I'd like to think that I could somehow appreciate the design efforts in these expositions, the emotions that were meant to be evoked. If not, there's always some classical music for you modern art haters. And last but not least, Mount Wellington. This was an amazing mountain that would greet us every day at the campsite. It would say hello in the morning when we went out of our tents to go to work, and it wished us a good night every evening when we went to sleep. Some of us had been seeing that mountain for the whole season without actually going to the top, so when we finally arranged to visit, we were very excited. To all the hardcore hikers out there, I'm afraid to say that we went by car, we didn't actually do the trek, but if you want to see the trekking, go watch this video of my travels with my bro Haruki. Anyways, we didn't need a painful 6-hour hike to be able to appreciate the beauty of this place, especially during sunset. There was a few people there, so we walked a little bit further away so that we could have our own spot. As always, these views wouldn't mean anything without the people there. And this last trip was so special to me because it was done with a group of friends that had become like my family. And I don't use that word lightly, unlike some other people. It's been just over a month, so how could our connection be so strong? Maybe it was the fact that we all lived less than 5 meters away from each other, or the fact we all worked together in a type of job that can really bring out the best camaraderie of people, or all the activities that we did together, or maybe all of these factors together, or maybe none of them at all. I'll never really know why it clicked between us, but my guess is that it was, amongst other things, the lack of pretentiousness of these people. The fact that none was pretending to be something they were not. None was trying to fit in shoes too big for them. If anything, they used smaller shoes than their actual size. They had no problem taking the piss at each other, and everyone was able to take a dab at their ego. There's a big difference between ego and self-esteem, and in the popular sense of the word, I do believe high ego is a very negative trait. It makes us believe that we're too good for something, or worse, too good for someone. We all have egos, and most of our egos, to be honest, could use some shrinking. It would probably only lead to the growth of our self-esteem. I think that's why I felt so close to these people, closer than I have felt to most people in my travels, to be honest. That, I think, is the strongest point of the hippie movement, the real hippie movement, something that even most hippies don't seem to understand. It's not in the clothes or the dancing or the ceremonial cacao or yes, the drugs, even though they all have their place, but it's in the power to accept, to really accept anyone. I cannot stress this enough. And that's it. That's not the answer to everything, but it's one less question that I'll have moving forward. I really hope more people would understand this, and most of all, I really hope I'll be able to be more conscious of this as I retreat into my life of lonely comfort that I once knew. The clothes we wear, the food we eat, the people we share our time with mean nothing if we don't add them to an already strong and confident self-image of ourselves. People think they can solve this by changing Prada clothes by hippie clothes, but it's more simple and at the same time so much more complicated than that. You can wear Prada and be more mindful than a hippie. What matters is that you know who you are and that you never see yourself as too good for something or for someone else. And most of all, be humble enough to understand that all your growth, all your value as an individual means nothing if you can't share it with other people. I love my alone time more than most people I know, so I especially need to keep reminding myself of the richness that comes when you let other people in, when you expose yourself to people who have had a life just as complicated, just as nuanced as yours, people that can accept or reject your theories, remind you that these thoughts you have don't live in a vacuum. They affect you and the ones around you. And sometimes, just sometimes, they are wrong. So don't be afraid to be wrong. It's the first step towards being right.